Hey guys, it is the week of March 22nd, and this is your very first media lesson away from school. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to get into today. First, I want to talk about digital citizenship. You'll remember at the very beginning of the year, we did some lessons all around being safe and healthy digital citizens. It is so important in this time when we are doing so much of our learning online with a device, or we're taking a break from our learning with a device. We want to remember about digital citizenship. So I want to remind you of the word think. When you are working online, before you comment on a Google Classroom, or you make a comment in a Google Meet, or type a chat, think. Stop and think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? The biggest ones you're going to want to consider is this helpful to what we're trying to do with our learning? And is it necessary? If the answer is no, please leave those things out, okay? We want to make sure that we're taking our learning really seriously during this time away from school. And we're super excited to be able to connect with you long distance. So, just remember that acceptable use policy, that our district devices and our district accounts, so we are logging in as Forest Hills students, whether we're at school or we're doing it from home. So we are logged in to our district account. We have to treat it the same way we would if we were at school. So I want you to just remember to use your best judgment, take care of yourself, take care of others when you're online, and take care of Maddox and Forest Hills by being really great digital citizens while you're learning online. All right, so now that we've got that covered, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. But what I really want to do today is give you a quick tour of the makerspace and walk you through a project that I'm working on. You know, in our makerspace at Maddox, we have our sewing area, and I also have a sewing area at home. Our lesson today is going to be in my sewing makerspace. I want you guys to check it out and enjoy. All right, so we are heading down the stairs into my basement. We are big Reds fans, and I'm going to take you right on into the area we'll be working in today. This is my sewing corner, and you'll see all of this fabric here bundled up on the table. I have pre-washed our fabric for today in the lesson that I'm going to be showcasing. So I'm super excited to get into today's lesson. Okay, so we have neatly ironed and folded up our fabrics. I also have some t-shirts here that we're going to be using for this project. So this project is kind of near and dear to my heart because I love sewing for a purpose. And so this pattern is for nurses and doctors that they can be wearing to be safe right now as they are working. And you'll notice Instructables is a site for teachers and students, so I come here to find ideas. So I have already done step one. I have printed out the pattern, and I'll be showing you what we've done with that. I will go ahead and fold the fabric and cut the ties and binding, and then I will be working on folding and cutting out the mask pieces. I wanted to tell you too that one of the reasons why I'm doing this project is because my grandma used to always say, you may not be able to change the whole world, but you might be able to change your corner of the world. And knowing that wisdom from her, I would encourage you to do what it is that you can do to make someone's day a little bit brighter. You might not be able to sew a mask. You might not be able to do the same things that a grown-up would do, but maybe, just maybe, you can make someone else's day a little bit brighter. Maybe you can make someone a card and put it in the mail. Maybe you can put sidewalk chalk out and the person walking or driving by might have a smile. So think about what you can do to change your corner of the world, make it a little bit brighter. Okay, so the first step here is to cut out 5 1.5 by 20-inch strips. So you guys have probably recognized this big mat. This is a different cutting edge that I have here at home. It's not quite 20 inches. It's about 15. So I'll actually be using my guideline up here to the 20 inch. I'm going to try something that I read about online for the ties that tie behind your head when you wear a mask, to use an old t-shirt. One of the reasons why this is great is you don't have to sew the edges. T-shirt fabric is so woven differently than other fabrics, so it will not need to have a lot of sewing around the edges. So I'm going to give this a try, and I've chosen a gray fabric here for the actual mask. Why am I going with gray and navy blue? Well, because I don't want it to be super fancy on this first one. Anytime you're doing something for the first time, don't choose your favorite fabrics. So over here, I have a lot of other really nice fabrics. I don't want to mess those up. So I want to do my trial run with my least favorite fabric so that I can work out the kinks and make some really beautiful masks. All right, so I've cut out my long strips of t-shirt fabric, and now I'm actually using a pillowcase, and I'm getting ready to cut out the pattern. And I'm going to, instead of cut right along the pattern, I'm going to use this tool right here that my grandma gave me when she was teaching me how to hand quilt, which I don't do much of anymore, but it's actually a chalk marking tool. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to mark all the way around the edge so that I don't have to pin through my pattern every single time. All right, so I have cut out 2 pieces of the pattern from my gray fabric, and I'm ready to move on to the next part. So I have cut out my 2 pieces. I'm ready to stack the 2 face mask pieces as seen here in the pattern and pin it in place. I'll use a 1/2 inch seam around all 4 sides, and then I will work on ironing in the pleats, which is going to be a tricky part since I've never done that before. Okay, so I've got my mask pinned together. It's actually front side to front side, so that's a little different than we typically sew. This is not a pattern that's going to get turned inside out. So some of you that have sewn with me in class, we always put right sides together, but in this case we did not for this particular mask. So I am going to very carefully line this up at 4/8 of an inch. There's quite a bit of fraction knowledge that you need to have in order to sew. You need to be able to measure really well. So you do have to pay attention to those things. So I'm going to go ahead and start stitching here at my 4/8 or 1/2 inch, because that is what this particular pattern called for. And I have to turn my fabric. So I lift the presser foot and turn that fabric. And I ran out of bobbin thread. So that basically means I ran out of my bottom layer of thread. So you can see stitching on this side and stitching on this side. And I didn't have quite enough bobbin thread, so you'll see this big long string here. So I need to fix that, and I'll be right back with you. All right, problem solved. So sewing is one of those things where most things you can fix if you mess up. The only thing you can't fix is if you measure wrong and cut wrong. So you really want to be careful for the most part with that measuring and cutting piece. All right, so I think I have made the pleats correctly, and now I am going to stitch those into place using my machine. Again, using that 1/2 inch seam allowance, which just means that my needle is going to go 1/2 of an inch from the edge of my fabric. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this turns out all right. I have never ever sewn pleats before. And one of the things that the sewing team has taught me this year is to never be afraid of something just because you've never done it. There's always a tutorial on YouTube that can show us how to fix something if we do it incorrectly. So you guys have inspired me to try lots of new things this year, and I appreciate it because I probably would not have been a very big risk taker in my sewing had it not been for you guys. And I'm realizing now that my stitching is not perfect, my lines are not perfect, and that would not be as noticeable if I had picked a darker thread that actually matched my fabric. So remember I said I'm using my not favorite fabric right now because if I mess up or I don't like how it turned out, I can always come back and fix it on my nicer fabric. So I will make sure to go through all of my threads. You probably noticed them hanging on the wall. And all right, so here we go. I think we've got the start of our mask. Our pleats are now stitched in, so it kind of looks like that. And we're gonna go to the next step. Okay, so here I am doing something new again. I am actually going to sew something called a dart. So you might have noticed on the pattern those red lines. Now what I've done is I've marked with my chalk tool, thank goodness that Grandma gave me the chalk tool, with this white line, and I am going to stitch over it to create these darts. Okay, so I have created the binding and I have attached it to the mask, and now I'm going to get ready to add that to my mask here. So I'm actually using a different seam allowance this time, and I've switched out my thread to a blue, and I just stitch right on down the side. Okay, so I finished the side binding, so it's not beautiful, but this is the practice one. So like we talked about earlier, doesn't always have to be perfect. So you'll see that the mask will then cover the face like this. Okay, so now I'm ready to sew on the rest of my binding. So this will actually become the ties that you can tie the mask on with. Okay, so the mask is finished. It will fit over someone's head and they can tie it just kind of like a surgeon would do. Hope to get 10 of these masks done so that we can donate them. I won't be donating this one because it's been on my face, so I could show you what it looks like. I have to hand sanitize in between every step and put them in a sealed bag that's been wiped out with a Clorox wipe. So trying to keep everything very sanitary and clean for them, which is why I did this version for you to see and for me to practice. There is a flip grid in our Google Classroom, so I would love it if you would add something to the flip grid this week. It could be you reading a book. If you are reading and you want to share that with me, I would love to hear a part of a book or a picture book if you want to do that. Or if you just want to share something you've been learning. It doesn't have to be maker. It can be just anything. If you're experimenting with something at home, or maybe it's just, I'm learning how to be an online learner. Tell me all about it. Can't wait to hear it. I hope you guys have a fabulous week.